This is The Instigators, presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos. Nothing else comes close.
We are going to overtime!
Thanks for joining us again for Instigators Overtime. Marty, we're going down the executive path once again inside the Sabres offices in just a moment with Associate General Manager Jason Karmanos on this week's podcast. Have you ever considered going into the hockey operations department at an executive level?
Yeah, I've considered it, and I think I will consider it again. Not that I've approached it or made the steps toward it, but I really like my position as an analyst and working as an ambassador and working with you and doing all that we do. But I do think at some point I want to grow myself, and and that path is one that I will explore. So funny you say that Jason Karmanos is an associate general manager. I wish that when I was a backup goaltender, they said Marty is the associate starter. So not the assistant, not the backup, but the associate starter. I think it rings a better bell, don't you?
Marty, we are responsible, aren't we, in our current positions to perhaps not only change the narrative sometimes, but change the language of the game. I think you're onto something here.
Am I your associate or you're my associate? That's what I want to know.
I think we should never use the word backup goaltender ever again.
Associate goalie. Yeah.
Associate. I love it. Well, here's the thing. We're always trying to, keep it on the rails, and we're going to do so with a guy who's got a ton of experience at the executive level in Jason Karmanos. And when you're serious about the game, bet on Buffalo at the only sports books in Western New York. Seneca Resorts and Casinos betting counters are open daily, and self-service betting kiosks are available 24/7 at all three locations. That would be Seneca Niagara, Allegheny, or Buffalo Creek. And the Sports Lounge features the latest lines and multiple screens, so you never miss a play. The Sportsbook at Seneca Resorts and Casinos, where the love of the game meets the thrill of the win. Jason, I feel like we're still kind of very much in this pandemic mode. I can only imagine what that does for your schedule, or sometimes lack thereof, on a daily and weekly basis right now.
Yeah, everyone's having to adjust, and that goes for scouts and management. You put your schedule together, and then you cross your fingers and hope all the games actually take place. So present some challenges, but everybody's just trying to roll with it the best we can.
Let me ask you, how does that work? So do scouts provide you with their schedule, or does it go directly to Kevin Adams? How does the hockey department kind of adjust working and making sure that everybody's out there seeing games and making sure that they look over their prospects and the kids coming up?
Yeah. You know what? Basically, every team in the league uses the same software system. There's one company that's kind of hooked into schedules and rosters and everything. And so this software system has a scheduling component to it. And yeah, all the scouts load their schedules into the software system. And we can always in the office, know where scouts are planning on being. And that goes for myself as well, load my schedule in there, just for ease of knowing where everybody's going to be and to make sure we have the proper coverage. Yeah, this pandemic and this situation is added a layer of complexity for sure, because normally you'd be able to plan scheduling from either an amateur scouting or pro scouting or a player development standpoint, and then you'd be able to bank on it because the games were scheduled. Well, that's not the case anymore. So and unfortunately you could find out a few hours before the game sometimes. So it's difficult, but everybody's kind of gotten used to it at this point, I think. And feel bad mostly for the kids, especially when they have games or just opportunities that are taken away from them. So it's difficult, but we're all doing our best.
It sounds like, Jason, that schedule you speak of, that software almost maybe, hopefully, updates in real time, because Marty and I know that the league's website sometimes has a little difficulty adjusting to postponements, and it takes a while to catch up, doesn't it, Marty?
Well, yesterday, funny enough, on Wednesday night, Montreal at Boston is playing, but on the schedule, Boston at Montreal is postponed. And I'm sure for the casual fan, that gets very complicated when there's the same teams are playing. One is on the schedule, one is postponed. And so, because Duffer asked you this, I want to know. So the real-time stats in the NHL, I mean, you've been around a long time. The guys that take time on ice, shots, blocks. Now that we have player tracking, is there going to be a transition? Because just the other night, there was problems with shift lengths, and there was Rasmus Dahlin had a 6.5 minutes shift. Like, that's impossible. Like, is there conversation? Do you have conversation to make sure that those are really accurate, because it helps you in doing your job?
Yeah, fortunately now these days we have other sources of data, so we're not relying on the NHL real-time scoring stats anymore for what we use internally. For what the coaches use, for what everybody in the organization uses. Unfortunately, you guys don't have that yet, right? So, but yeah, I mean, those guys up there, they're doing the best they can, and sometimes balls get dropped. There's a lot of moving parts, keeping track of the game as it's going on. So, I respect the job they have and the difficulty of it, for sure. But fortunately for us, we have better data that goes through a quality control process, especially after the fact too. But it's better in real time, and it's certainly better after the fact in terms of just the quality of the data and the depth of it. So anyways, yeah, it's come a long way since I've started, for sure. But yeah, I don't know, in terms of like transition, don't want to, take anybody out of a job. I mean, there are always other things to do on a game night basis, but I'm not aware of any plans to, change that process, at least in the short term. Okay. That's, that would be a league decision, obviously.
Gee, I'm really torn here, Jason. I don't know whether we should lobby you publicly right now, since we're kind of on air with you, to get access to your proprietary information, or whether we should do this behind closed doors.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can keep working on us. You can work on Sam. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It would be a tough one.
Well, there's the segue. One of the big tasks for you was coming in and building the analytics department. So let's dive right in. Talk about who you've hired. We know the names, but if you say the names and attach some of their great qualities to it, I think it'll give people a lot better perspective on what exactly you're building here.
Yeah. No, I know you guys have had a chance to talk to Sam Ventura. When I got the job in Pittsburgh in 2014, coming there with Jim Rutherford, that was a main task there as well. Get that organization up to speed on use of analytics. And that was quite a while ago now. So, we didn't have everything at our disposal that we have now. But I had a consultant at the time and needed a more sort of full-time solution and move towards a more modern approach in terms of integrating that type of information into the decision-making process. So, quite frankly, I stalked Sam Ventura on Twitter, kind of like followed him that way, among other people as well. Tried to get a handle for the people that were out there doing all this work in the public sphere. And it was honestly just a fortunate coincidence that Sam ended up being a Pittsburgher, right around the corner from the building, literally. Had this website at the time with a colleague of his, War on Ice, that was great, and he was just a really impressive guy that I was fortunate to find at the right time, right place. Developed a relationship, brought him into the Penguins organization as a consultant initially, and then he became full-time and a big part of our success there in my mind. So I was really, really surprised that he wasn't under contract long-term with the Penguins going forward last July. And again, very lucky, I think, to be able to bring him here as the centerpiece of that department moving forward. So the amount of interest that that we received as an organization, but Sam was the one soliciting the resumes for the positions that we decided to fill in data scientist and data engineer, it was overwhelming and really cool, to see that level of interest. Needed certain skill sets, as I believe Sam, talked to you guys about. There's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes with the data that's available now. It's not just here you go, here's all the information. It's working with the information, coming to unique conclusions. There's actual research that goes on and on that side of things that is pretty exciting in terms of, you're not gonna turn the game upside down, but you're looking for just that tiny little edge anywhere you can get it. My opinion is that, NHL teams are all populated with smart people that are working hard and extremely competitive people. So, the difference between organizations, between success and not having success is such a fine line. So you're always looking for that little edge. And so we're hoping that, I know we're really excited that, Dominic Gallimini and Matt Barlow are here now. Those are the two guys that have been brought in the positions that we had so much interest from. Away we go. We have what I think is one of the strongest analytics departments in the league. And so we're poised to make sure that part of our organization helps us in our decision-making, in every respect. So excited about that. So it's definitely, it's good that we're moving forward now with that group.
Now, at the NHL level, that's a lot easier. You're getting a lot of data. Can you get the same data and same analysis at the AHL level with the Rochester Americans, or is there a difference between the two and what you can gather?
Yeah, well, the difference now is this brand new tracking data at the NHL level. So that's not available anywhere else yet. But in recent years, in the American League for sure, in recent years, we're picking up basically all of the leagues now through various sources. So it depends on exactly, each league in terms of what you're getting from each league differs a little bit, but we're getting to the point now, especially in the last 2-3 seasons, where we have so much more data available on the amateur side, in preparation for the draft. Which is huge, it's and especially huge as you move forward and start to have comparisons over years and start to figure out, things that matter over time in terms of projections. That's an extremely difficult part of our business that I think I've talked about with you guys before, the projection aspect, how young these kids are when we're drafting them. So, you obviously have the big differences for, in terms of where they're playing, the level of competition, the issues that we have to deal with draft eligible players playing with men versus draft eligible players playing at lower levels among their peers, and trying to make sense of that in terms of from a projection standpoint. When some players, and usually top level players, are playing just a handful of minutes with men, you end up putting a lot of eggs into certain baskets, like an under 18 tournament, and a short period of time where they're playing with their peers. So there's always going to be difficulties like that. It's not going to be, a perfect formula where you dump it into a computer and suddenly the computer tells you, okay, here's your draft list. But it's a process of managing all the information, I think, in all respects in your organization. So might be on the amateur side, might be on the pro side, might be coaching, player development. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's the same task. In my mind, in all respects, you're taking as much information as you can gather, and trying to bring it together in a coordinated manner that helps you make better decisions. So Sam's department, the analytics department, is obviously central to that, but it doesn't replace the other information that we gather in our organization, and certainly just the apps, the things that remain, coaching, developing players, bringing them along over time. All these things are important to hopefully get to where we want to get to.
It's all so fascinating. I love it. We could literally spend hours because I have a million questions, but I'm trying to get inside that answer, which I think was really detailed. But what does your gut tell you as far as where the analytics and your department might be helping you most in the short term? Is it in the drafting because you've got more information? Is it at the AHL level to project those guys that you can call up and maybe have success? Or is it helping most at the NHL level to weed out players potentially that can't help you as much, or conversely can really help you in a third or fourth line or role like that?
Yeah, it's hard to say in the short term what particular area it's helping more. I don't really view it that way, that we have an impact that's greater in any one area. I think where we are as an organization right now, drafting and developing, it's what it's all about. I mean, I know it's been a period of time here with this organization, and it's probably something that's been said before, but that's where we are. We have to draft well. We have to develop well. We have to make the right decisions with the draft picks that we have over time, build relationships with them, understand how they project, and do the best we can with that. I've been in this long enough to know that even if you work as hard as we work and do everything we do to make the right decisions, it's not always going to go the right way each time. Like, it's just the nature of our business, especially when you're dealing with kids that are so young and they're developing physically and emotionally. It's not a perfect projection, no matter what people say. That's just the truth. You're going to make some mistakes. You have to be aware of that. It's trying to minimize them and doing the best we can. That's really what we're trying to do. Trying to put the pieces in place to make the best decisions possible.
So if we look ahead now, we are in January. In March, there's a trade deadline. I wonder, how does it work? Do you only talk to assistant general managers? Do you talk to actual GM? Did they call you, or did they have to go through Kevin to get to you? Like, how does the conversation work when you guys get ready for, let's say, the trade deadline, or later in the summer, free agency, like the agents and whatnot? How does that all work with your job?
Yeah. No, I mean, I would say most of the conversations are with my counterparts, assistant GMs, but since I've been around for a while, I've got a lot of people that I've worked with that are GMs now. So I definitely have interaction with guys that have moved on to be GMs and various teams. People text so often now. There's a lot of texts that fly around, group texts, poking around, asking questions. It might lead to, a further question with Kevin or even potentially somebody else in the organization. I think the league works, there's a lot of relationships, around the league, a lot of, not necessarily myself, but a lot of guys that have played with one another over the years, ex-teammates or whatever. They might feel, more comfortable reaching out via text to somebody that they played with for a few years in the past. So it's funny that way sometimes, in the trade deadline, the information's kind of coming from everywhere. Certainly Kevin, as the general manager, fields the calls, predominantly, but there's a lot of poking around the edges, I would say.
Does anything serious happen via text, or is serious reserved for a phone call?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like now, there's a lot that flies around of the serious nature via text. And I think that, when that started, I remember talking to Jim Rutherford about that. And he was pretty surprised by that, but now I think Jim's on board, it's funny, you adapt, the league changes, the world changes. There's probably too much that goes on via text, quite honestly, but that's just, if you wind it into developing relationships with players, that's literally the only way they communicate now. So it's like, It seems like, at least sometimes. So it's funny, but yeah, there's a lot that goes on via text, via group text. It's kind of funny.
How
Okay,
many
I'm
years
very
away? Wait, Duffer, because that's with this. How many years away are we from direct message on Instagram or Twitter or Snapchats? Because that's what the kids are doing. And 15 years ago, we wouldn't have thought that text messages were going between general managers. So how many years away before you're snapping one of the assistant GM on some other team?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but yeah. So,
well, Marty,
we'll
you're
see.
you're a gift guy. Like,
Yes.
so any of these trade proposals and hockey talks, do they come with gifts and emojis and all the rest, or is it just straight line to the point? We want this guy for this.
Yeah, I mean, I think certain guys, I don't want to give anything away, are more colorful than others. So let's leave it at that. So.
Okay, last one on this topic for me, because I've done it. Have you ever erroneously texted the wrong group or person in situations like this? Because you're talking about, texting an awful lot of different people by the sounds of it.
Yeah, you know what? I did this year. Oh my gosh, it was embarrassing. When I was signing Mark Jankowski for Rochester, I had him on a group text with someone else from Rochester, and instead of texting Mark Jakubowski, I had texted this person and Mark Jankowski.
Oh boy! So did you like tell him he was signed without him knowing, because you were telling Mark Jakubowski?
It wasn't that bad, and it wasn't that embarrassing. It was just embarrassing that I literally did that I included the player, and it was about the player, which was the funniest thing. So now I joked about it with Janko, and he was laughing and stuff like that, and then with Mark. So now in my phone I have, just to make sure I don't screw it away, I have, Mark Jankowski, player, in bold, Mark Jakubowski, just to make sure, because if you look at something really quick in your phone and you just grab it, and you know how when you're typing in names, it just, so that happened. So that was amazing.
I was thinking more in the fact that maybe you texted a player, hey, make sure you grab dog food on the way home, and you're trying to send that to a family member. And then, that's a reoccurring joke over the years, because we all have done that. I mean, Duffer, you're lucky you're not getting my text I sent to my kids. But, well, you talk about Jankowski. Are you mad at Kevin now because of all, or maybe mad at the world because of all the COVID issues we're dealing with, that you have to work super, super hard, probably 20 hours a day, to try to make sure you feel the team in Rochester? Like, that's your job. So are you mad at Kevin every time he sends you a text and say, we got to get, this guy up. We got to get this guy up. How does that work?
Yeah, no, I'm not mad. It's everybody's dealing with it. It's difficult, because then, around the league, we're all kind of drawing, our PTOs or various, players coming in for the short term from the same pool. So it's tough. But no, I'm involved in those conversations. So, we're just trying to roll with it the best we can. Each morning, you don't know what you're going to get lately. So it's just, you have no other choice but just to go with it. I think we were trying to, whatever it was, maybe a couple months ago, just try to keep the virus out of the rooms and everything. But at this point, it's just sort of managing it. I mean, honestly, there's no other way to put it. I mean, we know that it's here, and so it's a matter of just making sure, and hopefully making sure it doesn't go out of control. But yeah, I'm not mad. I'm involved in the same decisions that we need to bring people up, and but thankfully, the coaching staff, Seth in particular, we're leaning on a lot of like past relationships, connections to guys. Do you know anything about this player? Trying to bring in, players that can help us on the ice, but also trying to make sure that we're bringing in the right kinds of people into Rochester as replacements. as needed, so that we're not, derailing too much, what the coaches primarily have built there, which is, I think, just a fantastic development environment, development culture for our prospects there.
Realistically, how many exchanges, either text and or phone calls, are you having with Seth on a normal day now?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like all day, every day, into the night. Like it's constant right now, especially. Just there's so much going on, obviously. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's constant, and that's part of it. I mean, it's been great. Like when I got the job, it was fortunate timing, I think, coming in and having the tail end of last season. So I got to know, I knew Seth a little bit from his previous stops, but not really well. Adam Mayer, Mike Weber, Chris Young were there, and Roch, and got to get to know them sort of on the fly at the end of the year last year before we got to the off season, which I think was really helpful in terms of the off season planning for then this season. If I had kind of jumped in the summer without that kind of experience of being around the team, during the bubble last year, it would have been a little harder, I think, just communication wise and everything. So it's a really enjoyable group to work with. We've got, Pex came in this year. Michael Pekka came in this year, hired Merzy to be our director of player development, which has been great, with Nathan Page and Tim Kennedy and Seamus Kodak, who was already there. Feel really good about our player development department as well. So yeah, the relationship, the communication throughout the organization, I think, has been really good. It's I think, a strong group of people, and, feeling good about, the pieces that we're starting to get in place here organizationally.
When you say you talked to Seth in the night or whatnot, so I remember last year we had a little bit of a issue with goaltending. I got the call and they said, "Hey, you got to enter the NHL protocol, right, to test." And Stinzy, the head athletic trainer, told me that you test in the morning, but then you may get your result at 2 a.m., right, for the next day. So is the testing faster now? And if you're getting a text at 2 a.m., are you guys then all on the same group text at 2 a.m., like texting with Kevin and with the trainers and the coaches saying, "Hey, this guy tested positive, like you have to adjust"? So is it through the night, like in the middle of the night, as everybody wakes up, getting the results?
Yeah. It's recently better at the NHL level now. You guys have probably noticed that there's kind of the turnaround time is you can do the morning test and get it back. That's not the case at the AHL level right now. We still have the kind of 1 day delay. So yeah, the test results usually come around 3 a.m. So that's nice timing. But probably we don't start talking about it until 5 or 6. So Michael Dess, a trainer in Rochester, he and Kedron and Kent, they've done an amazing job just dealing with everything, and the whole staff, equipment managers, they have to be ready for anything. I mean, it's just, well, it's taken what is just an overwhelming job at times, for those people, and just taking it to like 2 and 3 levels above that now with all the things they have to be prepared for. But yeah, it's now it's become so commonplace that it's not like as big of a deal as it seemed like a while ago. When you were waiting to find out in the early morning hours whether you had enough players for the game that night. So it's just part of the equation now. I mean, we were dealing with it again today. So it's just part of it.
So Brian Howdy is the classic example of all of this, as a guy who was working at a restaurant that Seth and Mike Weber got to know pretty well, and yesterday was signed to a PTO, and then was the backup last night. This is ridiculous that I'm asking this, but is Brian the short-term, long-term solution, meaning like a PTO can last 25 games. Is that right?
Yeah.
But are we not experiencing a goalie shortage in North America? Like might Brian be around for a game or two and actually travel with the team, or what?
Yeah, we're in the process of solving that. Brian, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Brian yet. But it's funny you talk about texts and stuff. I mean, I'm not going to bring it up, but the actual text from Seth the other day prior to the game was, something along the lines of like, and he's being funny when he's doing this because he knows Brian. He's a really good person. Apparently, I don't know him yet, but he's like, in the text, he's like, the bartender has tested in Buffalo, and he's waiting results. And if if he's cleared, he's ready to get a pregame skate for us and back up tonight. I mean, I was looking at that and we were laughing about it later. I'm like, literally, like, the bartender is going in tonight. So, but well, yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, hey, you need somebody. It's an emergency backup for that situation, because you have the testing aspect that is the part of it. You can identify someone, and depending on how physically far away they are, they got to travel in. We've had multiple players travel in and then test positive. So we've learned our lesson on that. We try to do it, there if possible, before we bring somebody in, especially if it's a longer distance. I mean, 2 years in a row here with the goalie situation. I mean, 4 goalies out. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's tough, but at the American League level, and there's ramifications all the way down, Cincinnati, as well, obviously. So it's just it's happening all over the place. That's where the stress comes, especially with the goalies, because it's we're running out. So Marty, Jason, stay fresh.
I'm fresh. I've been getting on the bike. I'm telling you, New Year's resolution was to always be ready. So here you go. What would be funnier in a text, this or that? The bartender is ready to go, or the Zamboni driver is ready to go? Because we saw that a few years back in the NHL. So what would sound funnier in a text, the bartender or the Zamboni driver?
Yeah, the bartender caught me off guard. I mean, I knew the story. We've talked about it, but I was looking at that. I was like, can this get any crazier? I mean, what are we doing? But you do what you got to do. Like, I mean, it's not a very unique story anymore. It's part of our situation now with goaltending in particular. Like, I mean, it's just, a couple guys per team. So if you run out, if you got a virus running through the roster, it can present problems for a position where there's, such a limited number of guys. So anyways, it's, hopefully we have a little bit more of a longer term solution. We've got, some options we're pursuing right now, and trying to do the best we can, plug holes, bring in the right people to keep things going, because, in Rochester, it's been, there's been a lot of moving parts, but it's been a really encouraging, season for our young prospects that have been there. It's been, like I said earlier, I think I've been really happy with the environment, the atmosphere there, in terms of making sure our young prospects are in the right situation to know, how hard they need to work on a daily basis, what it means to be a pro. And, so there's a little bit of all kidding aside, there's a little bit of a slippery slope there. Like, I mean, this can't become a big joke, I mean, this at the end of the day is the second best league in the world. Like, I mean, we're dealing with tough circumstances, but at the same time, this is pro hockey. This is, they're one step away from the NHL. So, we're trying to make sure that our young players understand, what it takes, and that, their habits, their daily habits, their daily preparation, that stuff matters. So, and I've been really, really happy with the work that the coaching staff has done in that regard to instill that. Michael Mersch in particular, captain of the team, is just phenomenal in that regard. He's such a great example for our young prospects, day in, day out, like every day, everything he does, is the perfect example for our young players. And he's probably an unheralded guy in terms of, our fans and people, following the Sabres, but, make no mistake, his role in this organization is a hugely important one.
Jason, last one for me would be just to help fans understand the dynamic of what Marty referenced with the trade deadline and, the movement that we see between Rochester and Buffalo, and where guys, have to be roster wise to be able to play in the playoffs for the Amerks. So let's say the injuries continue. You got a bunch of guys like Quinn and Krebs and whoever else, Peterka, let's say, are up with Buffalo. And what if they're here for a few weeks or a month or whatever? Like, how can they get back and play in the playoffs for Rochester? How does that whole dynamic work?
Yeah, it's the old 4 recall rule, which, confuses people even in the league. but the simple way to say it is that to be eligible for the playoffs, to be sent back for the AHL playoffs, you would have to have been recalled to the NHL after the deadline. So sometimes if a player is in the NHL prior to the deadline, can go down without waivers. Or I suppose if someone needed waivers too, someone could attempt to clear somebody. The paperwork would need to happen so that the player was sent down prior to the deadline. So say it's 5 p.m. or 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. or whatever, paperwork goes in, and it can be 10 minutes after that the player is recalled on paper. That would count as one of 4 regular recalls that you're allowed. With emergency recalls, it's unlimited. So if you get into a situation where you're below 12 forwards, 60 or 2 goalies, then an emergency recall can occur at any time in any of those players, as long as they remain on emergency, meaning that, when the players come back, they have to come back down. Those players are all eligible to come back regardless of the number. So it is from a planning perspective, you have to keep in mind, the four regular recalls, and you have to plan for that. And if you have anybody that's on the roster prior to the deadline, you have to, what we refer to as sort of paper them so that they're able to go back. So yeah, the division is really strong. We got to get in the playoffs first, with everything that's going on. We're, so far so good in terms of where the record is right now, but there's a long way to go. And I think, it's a balancing act, it's about development, but certainly, a winning environment, winning hockey games, having success together, is helpful to development, obviously. So having fun along the way too. So we're hopeful that we can get in there, have that experience for our prospects, because we think it's important to, hopefully have some success together. And so we're shooting for that, and we'll prepare for it, as we move along here.
What did you think of that's the last one for me too. What did you think of the prospects that got called up to Buffalo? Peterka, Krebs, Quinn. You got to see them a lot in their development the last little bit here, and you guys made the trade for Krebs and Tuck. But what did you think of their time in Buffalo, and moving forward? What can we expect from their game getting to a next level?
Yeah, well, with Jack's game just the other night, I was really impressed with Jack's game. It wasn't a great game, obviously, for us as a team, and we had the injuries and everything. But I thought if you concentrate on Jack's game, Jack's shifts, the poise he showed with the puck, he's I think doing really well. Has had a tremendous year. Probably put a little pressure on himself at training camp. Maybe didn't have the training camp that he was hoping for, but right from day one in Rochester, it's been really, really good. So for me, they're getting a taste of it. They're coming up, they're getting some games, they're getting their feet wet, There's still work to be done, I think, with all of them. I think they know that too. Like, we're not trying to just kind of throw them in the NHL and trial by fire. That's not really the game plan. The game plan is to get them some experience at the right times. Sometimes it has to do with, other things going on with injuries and opportunities that come up that way. But what we're also trying to simulate down in Rochester is what we hopefully, what the future is for them, hopefully in the NHL someday. So, when they're in Rochester, all those guys that you mentioned, they're top players on Rochester. And so they're getting used to, being focused on by the other team, teams are trying to shut them down. They're on the ice at the end of the game, trying to score the goal to tie the game. They're playing all critical situations. These kids are young, so they're not really ready for that, even though they're extremely talented in the NHL yet. But it's that process of giving them a taste, having that be a motivating factor for them when they are probably back in Rochester, and letting it happen over time. I don't think there's ever been an example of a player that's spent too much time in the minors. I don't think that's not what we're trying to do, but we know the value of learning how to play, all situations, play that big role on the team that, we envision for these guys in the future as Sabres. So it's all part of the process. There's other guys as well, Matthias Samuelson's had a difficult season from an injury standpoint to date, and has missed out on some opportunities, but when he's played, he's been great. Casey Fitzgerald came up, and I thought he did a really nice job, and he's earned that opportunity. So obviously UPL, prior to the injury, like there's a lot of good young prospects in this organization here currently playing, some on their way, not yet signed by the organization. So we feel good about that. We have a good, group of young players now. And, we're looking to continue to add to that, as we move forward here with more draft picks and other deals and transactions we're, looking to try to make over time. So it's all part of the process. And I was really excited about their debuts and, look for big things for those guys in the future.
Absolutely. Jason, thank you so much. I mean, we miss seeing, everybody in their normal travels, but we really appreciate the time today. Terrific insight, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Marty. Good to be with you guys.
3 Stanley Cups on his resume. Wonderful to talk to in Jason Karmanos. Hopefully you learned as much as I did. That was, again, more insight into what they're building, Marty. And we obviously are constantly focused on what's going on around the game of hockey. That narrows it down to our 3 stars of the week. Who you got?
Okay, well, just because you did that the other day with Sesame Street, it was presented by the letter Z or whatnot, I'm going to say my 3 stars today are presented by the color yellow. Former team of Jason Karmanos, the Pittsburgh Penguins, are my 3rd star. They've got Evgeny Malkin now rolling. Letang is looking good. Crosby is midseason form, and they have been really on a tear lately. So I'm saying Pittsburgh is my 3rd star. Again, the color yellow. Well, the team that the Sabres are playing on Thursday night, as we record this on Thursday, the Sabres are set to play the Nashville Predators, and they are about the hottest team in the National Hockey League. So the Nashville Predators are my 2nd star. They just beat the Colorado Avalanche in overtime. They've been really, really good since the break. And my number 1 star, again, brought to you by the color yellow, because his equipment is all yellow, is UC Soros of the Nashville Predators. He has been the Vezina Trophy leading candidate, in my opinion. He faces 35-40 shots a game and really sets the tempo for the Preds. So again, he's set to play Sabres on Thursday night. So we'll see. These 3 stars have been kind of on the decline after I've brought him up into the world. So maybe I'm reverse jinxing the Nashville Predators against Buffalo. Who knows? I'm trying my best here.
Well, we learned an awful lot about players who are at varying levels of their development within the Sabres organization and within pro hockey. But we also learned this week of three players being very close together as teammates and friends off the ice. So my three stars are one of the same in the sense you could call them the three amigos. You could simply refer to them as stars or wannabe stars of the Hangover series.
Yes.
And it's Ryan Scarfo, Matthias Samuelsson, and Jack Quinn. Obviously, so much attention on Quinn this week coming up for his first NHL game, but it was made that much more exciting when Scarfo and Samuelsson came to be on the glass for the warm-up, wearing the Quinn jerseys reversed and supporting their friend. Yes, a teammate, but friends most importantly. Look, Scarfo, undrafted, 27-year-old, came out of Union College. Samuelsson, also a collegiate player, Western Michigan University. He's 21, was a second-round pick. Jack Quinn, a first-round pick coming out of the Ontario Hockey League. Everybody's got a different path. But from what I learned, this has been in place for quite a while, Marty. When they traveled, the Amerks did, to Hartford earlier, and Jack wasn't able to play because he was recovering from mono, he apparently got a prep school jersey of Scarfo's and wore it in support of Ryan, who, of course, he said would go out and score, and did score that night. These three are woven. You look on their, social media pages and see them reenacting the Hangover. You must love seeing this camaraderie among teammates.
It makes me remember and live my days in Rochester. So just a quick story. Scotty Nickel reminded me of that just a few weeks ago. My first Halloween party, it was myself, Jean-Luc Grandpierre, Denis Hamel, and Daniel Bienvenu, 4 French kids. And, in their first year playing pro hockey. And at Halloween, we dressed up as the band Kiss. And if there was social media back then, we would have been all over Instagram and everything because we had it down pat. But those three, Scarfo, Samuelsson, and Quinn, remind me of those young bucks that we were back then. And I absolutely love it.
Who was Gene Simmons?
It was Jean-Luc. With a big thong. I think I was Paul Stanley with the star, right? Or was it Ace Frehley with the stars?
Well, I don't care what you would always be Paul Stanley. Like
okay. I was Paul Stanley. Yes.
You're just a beautiful human, Marty, inside and out.
Well, thank you, Duffer. I totally appreciate it.
But you're not the backup. That is one thing you're an associate. If nothing else, you're an associate in all of this. All right, folks, thanks for being with us. Can't wait to see you again next time on Instigators Overtime, presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos.